Apple closing in on a $4 trillion market cap. The surge comes on the back of strong demand for the new iPhone 17. Joining us right now is Doug Clinton, Intelligent Alpha founder and CEO. Good morning to you. We always say you can't make new highs without being at new highs. The question is, how high can it go? And really, where are we in the cycle? You know, this is one of these stocks where everybody said they're not in the AI game, they can't make it, and here we are.
Well, Andrew, I think if there were a poly market for whether Apple would hit a $4 trillion market cap, I think you'd have to assume the betting odds would be heavily in favor of that. We're just on the doorstep of that 4 trillion number. So the answer is I think it could probably go higher. Our models at Intelligent Alpha continue to own Apple. So our models continue to think that Apple can go higher. And the reason is, to your point, I think the sentiment was just completely bottomed out. If you go back to midsummer, the narrative around Apple was that they were nowhere in AI. They had no hope of ever launching a product even that would sort of compete with GPT or Gemini. And I think that fear has completely washed away. We rarely even hear about investors talk about AI and Apple anymore. Now it's about iPhone 17, which has been, I think, a much better launch than most investors had expected. My partner over at Deepwater, G Munster, he tracks lead times for iPhones. And there was a 13% increase in lead times this year versus last year. So I think this is shaping up to be a really good iPhone cycle for a stock where people weren't expecting much.
So you think this is just a phone story? And I think the larger question is, does the AI question mark that's lingered over this company still matter?
It does, but I think Apple has done a great job of managing expectations there. I mean, they've basically said to investors, don't expect us to say anything about AI until sometime next year. And now the rumors are roughly March of next year, we could get the really big upgrade to Siri that everybody is really excited about. And so I think they've kind of said it with investors, you know, look, you're not going to hear anything about AI. So it just hasn't been a story. And as long as they continue to deliver these high iPhone numbers better than expectations, I think the stock can keep working.
Do you expect that they're going to ultimately need to either figure out AI and have their own LLM, or that they're going to have to buy another one?
I think once we get beyond, you know, that 4 trillion market cap that we're talking about, what's kind of the upside case? What's the optionality? It is ultimately that Apple figures out, I think it's about Siri. You know, how do you make Siri a true AI player in the world that now is dominated by GPT, dominated by Gemini? And Apple should have all the tools to be a real player there with Siri. They've got a multi-billion user install base with their products who use their products literally every day. It'd be easier than any other AI product to just get that into your normal workflow. And so I think to the extent that they can launch a very competent Siri, and the bar I think is low there too because it hasn't been very good, that could be another catalyst. But we're looking at that happening probably more early next year before that becomes a bigger part of the story.
And then finally, in terms of just upgrade cycles, I know you said you thought this was not the cycle. Do you think next year is somehow going to be different?
No, I think next year could be an even bigger cycle for a few reasons. One is getting back to that AI story, right? If they figure out how to make Siri a competent AI assistant, I think that you could see the iPhone 18 cycle be even better than the iPhone 17 cycle because users will hear about a Siri that finally works. They might have an older phone that they're ready to upgrade. And so I think just getting that technology right, getting that software right finally, which they've done nothing with in the iPhone 17, which has been a good cycle already, I think that could be another catalyst as we look at the back half of next year.